From the rising of the sun to its going down, the Lord's name is to be praised. Let us open our hearts to his presence and listen for his voice in the stillness of this evening hour. Our evening sacrifice, the desire of ages, chapter 2, the chosen people, August 21st. Down in a lowly manger, the humble Christ was born, and brought us God's salvation, that blessed Christmas morn. Go, for Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. Hebrews 9 verse 24. As they departed from God, the Jews in a great degree lost sight of the teaching of the ritual service. That service had been instituted by Christ himself. In every part it was a symbol of him, and it had been full of vitality and spiritual beauty. But the Jews lost the spiritual life from their ceremonies and clung to the dead forms. They trusted to the sacrifices and ordinances themselves, instead of resting upon him to whom they pointed. In order to supply the place of that which they had lost, the priests and rabbis multiplied requirements of their own, and the more rigid they grew, the less the love of God was manifested. They measured their holiness by the multitude of their ceremonies, while their hearts were filled with pride and hypocrisy. With all their minute and burdensome injunctions, it was an impossibility to keep the law. Those who desired to serve God and who tried to observe the rabbinical precepts toiled under a heavy burden. They could find no rest from the accusings of a troubled conscience. Thus Satan worked to discourage the people, to lower their conception of the character of God, and to bring the faith of Israel into contempt. He hoped to establish the claim put forth when he rebelled in heaven, that the requirements of God were unjust and could not be obeyed. Even Israel, he declared, did not keep the law. While the Jews desired the advent of the Messiah, they had no true conception of his mission. They did not seek redemption from sin, but deliverance from the Romans. They looked for the Messiah to come as a conqueror, to break the oppressor's power, and exalt Israel to universal dominion. Thus the way was prepared for them to reject the Savior. At the time of the birth of Christ, the nation was chafing under the rule of their foreign masters and racked with internal strife. The Jews had been permitted to maintain the form of a separate government, but nothing could disguise the fact that they were under the Roman yoke, or recognize them to the restriction of their power. The Romans claimed the right of appointing and removing the high priest, and the office was often secured by fraud, bribery, and even murder. Thus the priesthood became more and more corrupt. Yet the priests still possessed great power, and they employed it for selfish and mercenary ends. The people were subjected to their merciless demands and were also heavily taxed by the Romans. The state of affairs caused widespread discontent. Popular outbreaks were frequent. Greed and violence, distrust and spiritual apathy were eating out the very heart of the nation. Hatred of the Romans and national and spiritual pride led the Jews still to adhere rigorously to their forms of worship. The priests tried to maintain a reputation for sanctity, by scrupulous attention to the ceremonies of religion. The people in their darkness and oppression, and the rulers thirsting for power, longed for the coming of the one who would vanquish their enemies and restore the kingdom to Israel. They had studied the prophecies but without spiritual insight. Thus, they overlooked those scriptures that point to the humiliation of Christ's first advent and misapplied those that speak of the glory of his second coming. Pride obscured their vision. They interpreted prophecy in accordance with their selfish desires. This passage was taken from The Desire of Ages, pages 29 and 30. Pacific Press Publishing Association, copyright 2005, or Evening Sacrifice, August 21st. I encourage you to connect with God and receive strength to overcome obstacles each day. Thank you for listening. Please join us tomorrow as we offer up our evening sacrifice.